What we have here is obviously a WANG PC with a 386 CPU in there. So this actually uses a Micronics 386 Asic motherboard from memory. Pretty rare, pretty damn rare. And it's not running the horrible WANG firmware anymore. We have put the Mr. BIOS in there because that WANG firmware is extremely limited in what you can configure in there, and it's generally complete rubbish. The downside of doing that is you can't run any of the original WANG software that's specific for WANG computers, but who really cares? It's all obsolete text-based stuff anyway, from what I've seen, so there's no great loss there. Plus, it's not that hard to change over the ROM chips if you ever do want to run the WANG software again anyway. So I'll show you what this actually looks like inside and show you what we've done to it. So this is what it looks like on the inside. It does have the incredibly difficult to obtain Micronics M710 memory expansion board. It took a very long time to actually find that. They do not grow on trees. So on these, you basically have 4 30-pin SIM slots on the board to use. It only accepts up to 1 megabyte SIM, so you've got 4 megs on board. If you want more than that, you need to have this M710 memory expansion card, and it is proprietary and goes into a fancy slot like this. And it does look like it's not actually inserted correctly, but I'll have a look at that shortly. That is bank 0 on the board, and you also have bank 0 on the card. You cannot populate both at the same time. If you're using the bank 0 on the board, you must not have memory in this card. You must start at bank 1. At the moment, there's just an extra 4 megabytes there, so this system has 4 megs in total. And you might notice there's something a little bit interesting in the CPU socket down there. It's actually a TI 486 DLC 40. Now this is a 33 megahertz system board, so it's only running at 33, but it is nonetheless a 486 DLC. And the benefit of the Mr. BIOS firmware on here is it actually allows the level 1 cache to operate with 0 configuration. It's just on or off, and there's an immediate speed improvement as soon as you enable it, and I can show you the BIOS on this machine. As for everything else, nothing particularly exciting. It does have a network card at the moment, and it does have XT IDE set up on there just for the large disk support. This is actually a 10 gigabyte hard drive, and that's fully operational in this machine. So we'll get this started up and show you what it looks like operating. But firstly, I'll push that card back in properly. So this is the Mr. BIOS configuration utility on this machine. So it's a lot more useful than the garbage that came on this machine. It doesn't actually allow you to do anything. And most interesting of all, as you can see here, CPU cache 486 enabled. And I have proven with benchmarks that that is actually working. It is a bit slower. Not a great deal, but it is definitely a bit slower with the 486 cache disabled. And if you disable the external cache, well, it's even hideously slower. And these are of course available with keyboard shortcuts while you're running in DOS mode, so you can switch these on the fly. Some applications will stop that from working. We want to actually have shadowing enabled. For some reason, I cannot shadow the XT IDE ROM. It doesn't give me the option. If I go onto that, because it's set in the D1000 memory space, I can't change that. Nothing happens. So hard drive access, while yes, it supports a massive hard drive, it's quite slow, but it is what it is. Various other things you can mess around with in here. But yeah, this Mr. BIOS, absolutely fantastic. If you can get it, I highly recommend it. Fortunately, it is available for this board. It's the Micronics 362/363 chipset, and it works absolutely flawlessly on this board. Way better performance than the WANG setup ever had or ever dreamed of having. The WANG firmware doesn't even support the DLC, basically at all. Couldn't get the level 1 cache working at all. The system became unstable, or basically just made no difference. So yeah, that's the story with this machine. And because this is fitted with a genuine Intel 387 FPU, we can actually run Quake on here. I did try this with a ULSI branded FPU and it flat out rejected it. It wouldn't even start. But genuine Intel one, it runs. And of course, being a 386, the performance is going to be terrible, that's a given, but it actually runs, to my astonishment. Absolute slideshow, but it runs. How ridiculous is that? It's by no means playable, of course, and there's no sound set up, so it'd run even worse if it was trying to make sound as well. But yeah, there you go. Quake on a 386. Well, DLC 486, but effectively a fancy 386.